right, welcome back to the Artist Connection podcast. This is Matt Kesar with today's very special guest, Mr. Rick Vito. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Matt. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. It's nice to have you here. It's an honor, actually.
Well, it's great for me to rejoin my friends in the Bethlehem, Allentown area.
Oh, I know. When I saw you were from Darby, and I knew that you had some experiences up here, I thought this was a perfect fit to have you on here.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, I've been here my whole life. I live in Fountain Hill, which is just right next door to the south side of Bethlehem. But I've been, I grew up here, and I live 5 blocks from where I grew up. And the south side of Bethlehem, especially in that Lehigh University area, is definitely my old stomping grounds.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Bethlehem has really had a real transformation since the time that I was there in the late '60s and the early '70s. It's really gone through quite a transformation. It's really become quite an arts community,
it has.
And of course, easy access to New York City. I know there's been a lot of people that have relocated to the area because it's so beautiful and such a nice place to live. And a lot of my friends who I was in school with there at Kutztown are in Bethlehem still, and so it's. You could do a lot worse in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It's a pretty great place.
Yeah, you sure can. My grandfather was a steel worker down at the Bethlehem Steel, and when that went away, or as it was declining, and then eventually went away in the '90s, it was a pretty big blow to the area. And having those the big blast furnaces there kind of decaying over time was just sort of sad.
Yeah, well, they're in glory now.
They brought it back. They brought it back big. The Sands Casino. I'm not a fan of casinos myself. I don't gamble, but the casino was kind of the first start, and then you get steel stacks down there, and you turn it into that kind of arts community, like you mentioned, and it's really turning things around. I can't say enough about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the next time you're in town, please look me up. I'd love to see you.
Definitely.
So I was talking to you before we started recording just about your long and storied career, which is just incredible. But you have a brand new record. I want to start there. Let's start with the now. Because your new record, which comes out on June 16th, is Mojo on My Side, and just incredible.
Thank you. I'm glad you like it.
Huge fan of the blues, and I love your take on it, and I know you've been chasing the blues for most, if not all, of your career. It's one of the early things that grabbed you, according to your bio, and to put an album out like this in 2015 is nothing short of inspiring.
Well, it's what I feel like I do the best, and at this point, having devoted so many years to playing this music, interspersed with other things, of course, but always seems to come back to this. It's just it's a great way for a guitar player such as myself to express himself, and it's always just been a pretty good friend to me, so it's just natural that my own music has a lot of that influence in it. It's not entirely... as I'm sure you know, it's not entirely traditional blues or anything like that, but it's definitely, you'd come away from the record thinking, it's definitely got some blues on it.
And your slide work is second to none.
Oh, thank you. Slide is my real passion even now. It's just something about the vocal quality not impeded by frets that allows you to just kind of express yourself in a way that you wouldn't be able to do on a standard fretted electric guitar.
I heard a lot about fretless bass playing, but I never played a fretless guitar. I don't even know if I've ever seen one. Obviously they're out there, but is that more of a custom thing?
For me it is. There are some Turkish players. I'm really interested in Eastern music, and there are some Turkish players that play, and it's inspired by the Turkish instrument, the oud, O-U-D. They just kind of transpose that to a 6-string guitar. And so that's the first place I saw it, and then a really good friend of mine at Wildwood Guitars out in Colorado gave me a really good, high-quality fretless instrument made in France, and that was my first one. And since then, I've made a couple of customized guitars with the help of a couple of luthier friends of mine.
Right.
So it's very difficult to play
I bet.
because obviously you don't have the frets there, so you have to be visually right on, and it's a sort of marriage of your hearing it with your ear and quite like a violin and seeing it with your fingers, and you can't really, or at least I can't, play chords very well, but it's more for melodies and such. But being a slide player, I was able to use a lot of that slide technique, but without a slide, just on the non-fretted neck of the guitar. So that assisted me.
I think back to early interviews that I used to read from the Rolling Stones talking about, Keith Richards talking about who he was listening to in the 60s and who he was influenced by, and how the slide work of guys like Elmore James blew him away. And at first they didn't even know what they were hearing. If you have no reference, how are you going to imitate that kind of sound if you don't know that there's a slide involved, if you think they're just doing it with their fingers? So it is interesting how that sound of slide guitar really grabs people.
Yeah, it does. I've had, done sessions for people. I can think of one guy in particular who was over from Switzerland and wanted me to play a slide solo, and just the sound of it moved him to tears.
I bet.
So it's an emotional sound and a lot of people having that kind of a reaction to it.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about the title track being the first song that you had put together for this new record, and the rest of it kind of grew from there. How long did the process take? Because I see that you played, not only they're all your songs, but you played a majority of the instruments throughout the record.
Yes, I did on this one. It really started off about 5-6 years ago, I guess, maybe 5 years ago. Let's put it there.
Yeah.
Couple of tracks I had, and then I keep recording more and more as I'd go along. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I thought I had finished the record 3 or 4 times a couple of years ago. And when I listened from top to bottom, I'd feel unsatisfied. I just didn't feel like it was quite there yet. There was a couple of tunes that weren't quite jiving with the rest of them, and so I ditched them and tried a couple more. And so it was just one of those ongoing processes. And because of the fact that I work at my own studio at my own pace, I've gotten quite adept over the years at playing bass and being an engineer, and I play a little bit of keyboards and harmonica and various different kinds of guitars and vocals and such. So I've learned to be my own producer, and so that's just the way this one came about.
Are you overly critical of yourself as it's going along when you have all these different hats on, when you're kind of piecing an album together? Are you critical as it's happening, or do you sit back later and listen to it and then think? Or does it happen in the moment?
I would guess a combination of both. You have to edit yourself as you're going along, or else you'll just wind up with too much stuff. And so I try not to record more than, say, 2 tracks of lead guitar on every track. And try to get two really good passes and just leave it at that, and then pick later. And the best test is, like you say, you leave it alone for a day or two, come back and listen fresh, and certain things become more obvious to you that you can edit out or retain.
Right. I even do that with this show. I mean, just it's amazing in conversation with people how you think things are going, or you think sometimes I'm too hard on myself with how things turned out when I hang up the phone, but then you go back after a day or two and think, all right, I didn't sound completely sound like a complete idiot.
Yeah.
I just need a little time.
That is part of the the creative process for a lot of in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
I mean, I do just a little painting for myself, and same thing. You start with a blank canvas and you take it a certain distance, and then get away from it for a while, come back and then determine whether you should splash black all over the thing.
That's right.
Or whether you got something there that's worth continuing.
Tell me about your relationship with Delta Groove. Delta Groove has been very, very good to me, and I've had the opportunity to interview a lot of artists from that label. So how did that relationship start?
Well, I had met Randy Chortkoff years and years ago in L.A. I didn't know him. I just had met him in passing, and I'd gone to a couple of shows that